Sitharaman was appointed as India's Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs in 2019, a role in which she has played a pivotal part in shaping India's economic policies. Since then, she has overseen key reforms such as the reduction of corporate tax rates, the implementation of the Atmanirbhar Bharat stimulus packages, and measures aimed at boosting the manufacturing sectors and infrastructure development. Madam Finance Minister was first elected to the Rajya Sabha, India's parliament, in 2014. Since 2014, she has held several other prominent positions in the cabinet, including Minister of Defense. In her role as Defense Minister, she spearheaded various national security measures and defense procurement policies, contributing significantly to strengthening India's defense sector. Beyond her extensive ministerial achievements, Madam Sitharaman is a trailblazer for women in leadership roles and a driving force behind India's growth story. It is a true privilege to have her with us today to share her insights on India's economy, financial system, global role, and vision for the future. Please join me in welcoming Smt Sitharaman. I would also like to introduce our moderators for the fireside chat. Professor Joao Gomes is the Harvard Butcher III Professor of Finance and Senior Vice Dean of Research Centers and Academic Initiatives here at Wharton. And Professor Jagmohan Raju is the Joseph J. Artsy Professor and Director of the Wharton India School of Business Program and served as Executive Education's Vice Dean for nearly 6 years. Over to you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Madam Finance Minister, thank you so much for your time. I know you are a very busy person, so thank you for coming here. We have a very excited group of students that is really eager for this event. Let me start with a sort of a big picture question, which I think is probably maybe your main focus. Prime Minister Modi has set a really ambitious goal to make India a developed nation by 2047. That's a generation from now. What do you think are the key priorities? What are your focus in the government to make this happen? And what's the role that you envision for the private sector in ensuring this transformation?
Well, thank you very much first that I have this opportunity to interact with you, your students, and I hope to learn a lot from this session, other than the thoughts that I will share here. To your question, you know, India is in a very critical juncture when you look at the ways in which India has to move forward, and we've set ourselves a sort of destination that in the year when we will be celebrating 100 years of having gotten us out from the British rule, that is 2047, we want to be and we aspire to be a developed country. And if that's the case, many of the things that we are investing in or doing, and also more importantly, because nearly 45% of our population is under the age of 30, and the mean age is about 28. We have so much to do for the youth of the country. And also because there is constant looking back at legacy problems, legacy issues of the society. The Prime Minister gave himself this formulation, two of them. One is, how are we going to go about this? So I would compress it to say 4 I's. First is infrastructure to be developed, whether it is your physical infrastructure in the name of bridges, ports, whatever, or the digital infrastructure, which is so critical for so many different purposes. So infrastructure. The second would be to invest in it. And in that comes the element of private investments, but more importantly, to kickstart the whole thing, have public investment go in. In the previous budget, we had given more than 9.5 lakh crores. We had estimated a 10 lakh crore for it. But we achieved about 9.46 lakh crores. So this year budget has come up with an estimated public expenditure of about 11.11 lakh crores. So every year there's been, since after COVID, approximately 18 to 20% increase annually in the investment, public investment in capital asset building. So investment comes next. So the second I is my investment, in which I'm saying first we start with public investment that would trigger and bring in the ecosystem in such a way that more investments will happen in core industries. So if you want infrastructure, you need cement, you need steel, you need so many other fundamental products. So for that, the investment will have to happen through private sector as well. Public sector companies can do it, but more. So the demand for core products are generated. If that's the second I, the third I is innovation. Unless we come up with innovative solutions for our problems and our aspirations, you're not going to, for instance, for many of the things that we want solutions for, cannot be made somewhere and then brought here, the costs will go up and they may not be appropriate to the situation for which we want a solution. So we want in situ solutions for many of our problems. That itself becomes the challenge for innovations to work out. So innovation, and the last and most important, is inclusiveness. In everything that we do, we want to make sure that everybody gets included. We are not going to let any one particular section of our society, omission or commission, not including people. You know, no deliberate attempt at not including people, but more deliberate attempt at including people. So that addresses the rough pathway through which we want to reach this. But then when I said about the legacy issues and also the various divisive elements that can come up, with respect to what prevails and without disturbing the existing social structures, because affirmative action is given in the Constitution, you will have to uplift poor, you will have to uplift the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, which is a commitment given in the Constitution. But other than that, the Prime Minister said, if I address 4 groups and make sure that if these 4 groups are given every access to resource, every access to opportunity, I'll overcome many of the situations which otherwise get, disrupted because of vested interest, if I may use that word. So what are the 4 groups? Farmers, because they're so critical for our food security, and as a country which has more than now, I think all my numbers will have to be related to a certain period, because current general census is due, likely to happen soon. So I'm banking on figures which came 10, 12 years, 20 years ago. But you know approximately that's the proportion. So nearly 60% of the population still is dependent directly or indirectly on agriculture. So we need to support farmers. Then you're looking at women, because women belonging to any groups, any religion, any caste, any section, women need that support, and Prime Minister's objective has always been help women, you help the family, support and skill them, give them opportunity. So women. So you had farmers, you had women. Youth, as I said, the numbers of Indian youth is our strength. As much as if you fail to serve them, you're going to lose that opportunity. And the final thought, again, inclusivity. Poor. India's poor need to be brought up. And as I go further, I might explain how, because of the schemes of government, the poor are coming out. 250 million people have been lifted from multi-dimensional poverty in the last 6-7 years. So that's been a priority of this. So,
thank you. So again, I'll echo what Professor Goom said. Thank you so much for taking the time. You can see the students and the smiles on their faces. It's such an honor to have you here. My first question to you is, India has been growing very well, 6 to 7%. The expectations from all sorts of bodies is that it will continue to grow. What is it that you do in your ministry and corporate affairs and finance to ensure that this growth continues?
Question is simple, but there are several things that we've been doing since after 2014. That's not to say nothing happened before. Maybe several things happened before. But with the global situation evolving the way it is evolving since after, let us say, particularly after COVID, the strategies that you devise for yourself will have to be cognizant of the developments which are happening globally. They are disruptive to the core, and there is no one section which doesn't hit India. It cannot be that something is happening elsewhere, it doesn't matter, it has no implication. Everything happening globally. A war earlier, sorry, if I can digress for a minute,
Sure.
just to set the context. A Second World War, or a First World War, or a Spanish flu, all of them were confined to a particular continent. Even the Great Depression was all confined here. But because of efficiencies, principles, and benefits of scaling up, and since after 91, when India joined this globalization effort, your efforts have always been to become a part of the global value chain. So with great effort, you kept integrating yourself into the global value chain. For every producer, backward linkage, forward linkage, we're all global. So your problems are also global. So nothing which happens in one continent is confined to them, so everything hits you. And Spanish flu versus COVID-19. They are two different kind of pandemics, but COVID-19 did not leave even one small Pacific island aloof. Everybody was hit by it. Similarly, food security issues came up after Russia and Ukraine. Fuel security happens every time there's a turbulence in the Middle East. Fertilizer security became an issue because suppliers of food grain or suppliers of raw material for fertilizer and so on were also now troubled. So no issue is beyond your zone, so you're going to get affected. So you have to prepare. So the point about how are you and what are the kind of things you're doing, just so many things. But in order that the shock coming from a global disturbance is not going to hit us as it would hit us if we hadn't taken enough steps, preventive and building firewalls, all happen. So, for instance, if you were to take the recent example when energy became an issue and global sanctions started after the Russian-Ukraine war, we still made our position clear. 140 crore people, and if I didn't have fuel to, make sure the fundamental requirements are met, and if I don't buy it from an efficient supplier or a cost-effective supplier, am I doing justice to my people or not? So you had to negotiate your way and say, look, please, your sanctions should not hit us, cannot hit us, cannot afford to hit us because you're hitting the 140 crore people. And so the things that you do in finance ministry are not in isolation. It is done with the central bank, with the other departments, with diplomacy working at different levels, and therefore listing it out may be difficult. But long and short of it is we are making sure that access is given to all Indian citizens, and in that, among the various other things, the digital access that we have given our citizens is one very powerful instrument which has given the choice to the individual to say, do I want to go through this route because I can see others benefiting, should I not? And because they've adapted to technology, we have seen the outcome. The 7%, which yesterday the IMF has said, this year India will grow at 7%. And that will be the fourth continuous year we are being the fastest growing economy. It couldn't have been if the people of India did not utilize the digital infrastructure for which there was no cost on them. It was public infrastructure. But through proper campaigns, making information reach them, even if they didn't have a smartphone, making information reach them in their languages, own languages, not just English, not just Hindi. When regional languages were available for them, and also when we kept adapting, for those who didn't believe the message that they got, a salesperson would have a voice recording coming. Yes, money paid this much. At the point of sale, having given 1 kilo of tomatoes to some customer, the payment is done through QR code. There would be a machine on the trolley on which they're selling, which would give a voice recording. We went adapting literally every month. Today they don't need that. They're okay with that sound which comes from their phone, decade. So the long and short of it is digital public infrastructure, which was so well appreciated during the G20, has made a revolution of democratizing access to people. And that Indian people have used, we see the outcome.
Thank you.
You've identified, I think, maybe three big themes of, I think, the three big challenges you have. One is you focus, I think, relentlessly on long-term growth. You have these challenges of resilience and inclusion. And I wanted you to talk through how you balance this, how you think through this. You have control of the budget, which might be maybe the most important, powerful tool at your disposal. How do you think of balancing these three legs of this long-term strategy? And can you give us sort of specific examples? You talked about women and young people of measures that you sort of thought were helpful to help them along the way.
Because you are pinning it on the budget activity.
You can answer more generally.
No, that's fine. I'll start from the fact that since after COVID, when we wanted to keep the economy floating and then rising, we have believed that if government spends on capital expenditure rather than revenue, and on that, sitting here, I will give a very provocative, if anything, comment. During COVID, we were relentlessly accused of not giving or putting money in the hands of people, because that was advocated by many economists as that one final solution for people to have some money and therefore survive during the pandemic. There were a lot of discussions in the government. We all sat together and we heard all these comments coming from various economists. Many countries had already started this whole exercise of giving money in the hands of the people. And we took a conscious call that we shall not go that route, because we believe, and after all, the theoreticians, economics theoreticians would tell you that when money is spent for capital expenditure, as different from revenue, the multiplier that you get, which actually spreads the benefit to the other layers in the society, is far higher than what you would get for every rupee spent on revenue expenditure. So we pinned ourselves on that argument and said, no, we shall not give handouts. But it wasn't as if we didn't give any handouts at all. We gave some basic handouts for purchase of medicines and other things for all those people who were recognized through the biometric identification that we call Aadhaar. And in that, the lowest rung who had gone through the biometric and had a bank account, we gave money for buying medicines. But other than that, we also gave them free food grain, which continues till today. So beyond that, we didn't give any money in the hands of people. So every expenditure was quality expenditure, creating assets. And because it was quality expenditure, it had its effect on the people who were working in projects, in situ getting their salaries. And aside from this, we also made sure small enterprises were given a collateral-free assistance, money to retain workers so that they don't throw them out, and that they wouldn't be, there was a moratorium period given, so that they, even if they are on the verge of collapse, they wouldn't be declared a non-performing asset. So there were protection mechanisms given, but the primary instrument through which we worked, and which we believe even now that we should continue in that route, is public investment in capital asset building. And that has really come out as one of the very successful story of reviving economy. Incidentally, we've been placing a lot of emphasis on quality expenditure, quality public expenditure, and I think the ratio of the real to capital, revenue expenditure to capital expenditure, in the last 6 years has increased by 10 percentage points. Where it was 12%, now it's 22%, naturally, reflecting and reiterating the point that that is the route through which we've revived. Balancing, therefore, becomes easy once this principle of upholding public expenditure for capital building is the root. And that is why when I gave you the 4 I's, my first is the infrastructure, second comes investment, both of which will be my primary route.
Thank you. I think my question to you, Minister, is there are lots of geopolitical and economic uncertainties, and India spends a lot of money. So how do you sort of maintain fiscal discipline and also invest in not just infrastructure but other aspects which are like education and healthcare, where at least many of us believe India could actually spend more? And how do you sort of balance those investments with more fiscal discipline so that you don't see inflationary aspects in the country?
Education and health, the moment you utter that, you're recognizing that it is not entirely in the union government's hands. In the distribution of responsibilities between the federal government and the state governments or the provincial governments, some are exclusively with the center and some are exclusively with the provincial governments, the state governments. And some come in between, called the concurrent list. Whether it's health or whether it's education, both of them come under the concurrent list. And as a result, any amount that I may spend would be a part of the whole and not the whole itself. So central government does spend money and that amount is increasing by the year. But if you look at it as though that is the entire amount spent on education or health, no, it is not, because every state spends money for its own education and health. But with that said, I would still say the scheme that the Prime Minister brought in of ensuring people's health through a particular insurance scheme called the Ayushman Bharat scheme is, I would think, one of the best social security program. 5 lakh of rupees for a family in a year, cashless and paperless treatment in the enrolled hospitals. And more than, if I'm right, more than 63 million hospital admissions have been absolutely serviced under this Ayushman Bharat scheme. 63 million. So the scheme, however much any other state may want to do, they can still do something. But this scheme launched by us takes care of the health insurance. And now this card or this paperless, cashless Ayushman Bharat is available for everybody over 70 years of age, irrespective of his background or his economic stage. So for education and health, therefore, any amount that I would say, for instance, education, if I go back once more, quality schools, and always the assessment is, are our schools producing quality students, their learning outcomes satisfactory? For that, there is a PM Shri school which has been launched. Already the center runs a lot of CB, Central Board of Secondary Education affiliated schools. Now we've also then come up with a PM Shri schools which will be in every district, but working as a nodal to several schools so that high quality transaction of learning can happen in classrooms is envisaged. Good training for teachers is being given, curriculum material is being handled. So we're constantly working to lift up the learning outcomes. That is also continuously growing. But these are not something which you can account in terms of numbers, oh, this many schools. But what is the learning outcome? So only time can keep telling you, and that is a dynamic thing that every cohort will have to be assessed.
Thank you.
You've talked about the importance of the digitalization has had to help your government and help India's economy in the last few years. And indeed we see this from our graduates that go back to India and the MS success stories. What role do we envision for this sector in the long term? What role do you envision it's going to play, and how do you intend to maybe regulate it or help it along the way?
The digitization.
The digital economy more broadly, which is...
Oh yes, the digital economy, I would think, is in the range of 3 trillion as it stands today. And we expect it to reach higher number within a year or two, to digital economy. But then the digital, I want to explain as to what are the benefit it gives to the public finance. You know, the digitization has helped us to do the direct benefit transfer to people. Meaning everybody, because we started off by giving bank account to every citizen, is now available in a traceable fashion, and any money which has to go to them can go directly by pressing a button in Delhi, let's say. And the verification of the individual is also done by a biometric route. So you have today, and I repeat this, 1 billion Jan Dhan account, bank accounts, 1 billion biometric verified individuals, 1 billion mobile phones. So when you put all these together, the actual impact and the scale of the digital economy is before you. Now that I have the digitally verified bank accounts, the central government's, I think about 340, 41 or somewhere in that range, 350 let us say, schemes of Government of India go through this digital route. So no cash transfers happen without knowing who the recipient is. 51 ministries in the central government all deal with digital direct benefit transfers. And how much would you, I don't know if anyone can make a guesstimate, nearly 450 billion rupees, dollars have been transferred, dollar equivalent, have been transferred through the digital direct benefit transfer mode. And this in the last 8 years, cumulatively. So what? Big deal for me, because 40 billion US dollars have been saved from pilferage in these 8 years. And as a finance minister, I need to stop the pilferage. I need to make sure every taxpayer's rupee is spent properly, accounted properly. I cannot have pilferages taking over and then we are saying, I need more money. When the departments want more money, finance ministry's business is to raise money and not lose money. This digital experience of India is a superb lesson in cutting down pilferage, fraudulent transactions, and ghost account holders have all been eliminated from the system. So that's what is giving me a big advantage in being responsible about taxpayers' money. That's one. Second, today it doesn't stop there. Even the transactions between the center and the state or the provinces goes through digitally. There are no manual book of entry transactions, and it goes in just in time. So after all, many of our resources are not just from what we earn, we also borrow money. So when the resources are being shared with the center and state, I can't park money somewhere but keep paying the interest for it, having borrowed the money in the first place. So what this digitalization has done for me is to efficiently use every rupee. We've created a single nodal account system through which every money which goes to the state is through that account, and just in time when you say, I'm ready to launch this project, the province gets the money from the center. No delay, but at the same time, no parking it and helplessly paying rent or interest over it. So digital helps me in that way as well. But more importantly, for the end consumer, the citizen, because this digital footprint is very clear now, you have banks credit rating them. Even small ticket loans are now getting done because the digital footprint is available. For the small transactions that he does, he still gets rated, and therefore, through the account aggregator, who's a pass-through that we've created, a digital pass-through, on his explicit giving permission, his data is shared through the account aggregator to the banks. And the banks lend them money at discounted, sometimes subsidized, sometimes simple rate of interest. So his business prospects have increased because his digital footprint is very clearly before him. And in this, if my numbers are right, 90 million people are using this account aggregator pass-through to get their small ticket loans from banks. Now, therefore, when you're talking of the robustness of today's India's economy, it is because of these small things that are coming through, which is because of the government's public expenditure in creating a digital network. Of course, now you know the story of UPI, I don't need to say, the QR code and everything else. The Reserve Bank of India has come up with a unified lending interface. If unified payment interface is the UPI, which the NPCI can take credit for, Reserve Bank of India has now come with a digital, unified lending interface. So even lending becomes all smooth, friction-free, based on all the data which is already available. Look at the scale of impact which is reaching down to people. Am I giving too long an answer?
No, this is very long.
So much to say.
You can see
Absolutely.
they are so totally engaged in listening. So
Okay.
our students are pretty.
I can't see people at the back. I hope nobody's snoozing away.
So, I want to shift attention to foreign direct investment now, if I may. I think in some sectors, like the tech sector, FDI has been good, pretty stable. What is the government doing and your ministry and the government put together to make sure more FDI comes in, they are comfortable and increase their presence in India? Because I think money is needed from all sources for us to grow at the rate we want to grow. So.
Again, start with a little number, subject to, of course, the chief economic advisor to the government who constantly, is she saying the right thing? So before I have a running test. So I'll anyway say the number. India might need, the rate at which we want to grow, India might need about $100 billion each year to meet up with the investment requirements. I think today it's in the range of $70 to $80 billion annually. And it's not as if it's insufficient, but it's also a question of how much the economy can absorb today. It is improving, so it will need more, it will absorb more as we move along. So it's not a report card saying, oh, you said 100 billion is what you require, but only 70 is coming. No, it comes with the levels of absorption of the different sectors of the economy. And today, the sectors in which investments are coming in are the 14 champions, 14 sunrise sectors that we've spoken about, in which you have pharmaceutical, you have electronics, you have semiconductors, you have the greater efficient solar PV modules, you have the hydrogen related mission that wants money, you also have the advanced chemistry batteries which are required for solar storage of power, and so on. So the FDI comes in for all these sectors in a big way. There are also champion sectors that we've talked about. Those also require money, but not in the scaled up levels as these sunrise sectors. Policy-wise, I think we've already opened up the foreign direct investment windows, where in some sectors till recently, or till 10 years ago, we were somewhere in the range of 49% or 27%. Today, all of them have gone to 75%. Automatic route money can come, no questions asked. And if you want to get a picture, if this opening up of FDI has helped India or not, 700 billion is all that we have received, let us say, till now. 90% of this is in the automatic route. So automatic route is across the board, everybody can come in and invest in. Other than this, through the SEBI, through the RBI, money flow into the country is so simplified and facilitated. There can still be some sectors would say, you're asking too many questions. And I would take a minute on that. We want business, we want investment, but we also need some safeguards because India is located in a neighborhood which is very, very sensitive. I cannot blindly receive FDI because I want money for investment, forgetful or unmindful of where it is coming from. Because the SEBI might have the usual global level disclosure norms, and you can always go from one to another as to who the ultimate beneficiary is. But sometimes ultimate beneficiary is a concern for me. Not because of who it is individually, but from where it is. And that is critical for me. So such restrictions will be in place in the national interest. And that's not just India. Many countries have a national security act or national security related some kind of a regulation through which they control such things. But otherwise, FDI are welcome and we've opened it up. The SEBI has been very, very forward-looking in terms of reducing the regulation.
Obviously, India has been, as you just noted, very successful at attracting foreign capital in the last few years. It's the new government obviously deserves a lot of credit for that. But of course you're still a little bit short as per your comments. What else do you think you need to do to get to those 100 numbers? And do you worry on the backside of it?
I won't stop at 100, I'll go further. I need more than that. Well, there are steps that we are progressively taking, compliances being brought down, requirement for due diligence being stringent, being brought down. But not to sound negative, but a reality check. It's not just the central government which has to take measures to reform and say, open it all up, we want people to come and do business in India. Many of the regulations will pertain to the provinces. Because just imagine a situation where the federal government does not own any piece of land. It doesn't really govern a piece of land, except if you're small union territories which have been with the central government. Everything is in the provinces. So if you were to go and establish a large factory to produce something fantastic, you still need the state government to come with you. And their laws should be friendly, their laws should be transparent. And that is where many states today are competing with one another to make it simpler. But there are still many more states which need to also join in this, becoming easier for business. And that consumes time. All right, you think that, all right, all the provinces are probably on board. But no, there is one layer even further down, which is the urban local bodies, where people get elected. The panchayats, which is at the village level, where people get elected. They have a right to decide what they want for themselves. And unless their reforms reach down to their level, and they make it easier for registration, for pollution control, for licensing, for paying the local water tax, for the sewage treatment, they are very much at the local authorities' control. If their reforms don't happen, I might do brilliantly at this national federal level, but if it doesn't go to that level, I can't, sitting in Delhi, dictate what they need to do, even if it's for the good. So reforms will have to be continuously done, particularly in a country like India, where the layers of governance, where people are electing others, we have to respect them.
This is our last question, and then the students' questions will start. So it's a little different question. I think several students here would like to take advantage of opportunities that are there in India. There's of course opportunities in the private sector and companies, but we have in the US we have things like the White House Fellows and so on. So is there something that your ministry and other cabinet ministers and others can do to sort of create internships for our students and other students from other universities that they might go and learn from you, learn from others in your organizations? Are such possibilities there? Could they be created? I think it's a
want
selfish.
them to. Are you sure they want to come to India?
I think they want to. Maybe not
They
all of
rather
them.
do the internship here with a governor
I
at
think-
Long Island. You know? But if they want to come to India, there is immense opportunity. Niti Aayog, which actually is the superb think tank, replacing the old-fashioned planning commission, today does phenomenal work in terms of producing the basic document for policy making. They have a lot of roles. Similarly, the MOSPI, the Statistics and Program Implementation Ministry, has a lot of role. Similarly, several ministers would want people to come and do an internship. I would love to have somebody coming from here.
Okay, we put that on record.
And other than that, there are state governments also which are looking at, the provincial governments which are looking at young minds coming and giving them good lot of ideas. And I just named 4. There are so many different other research bodies associated with the government, which also want experts, domain experts coming and working, even young experts coming and trying and giving us solutions. So yes, it's all available.
Thank you.
And welcome. I hope to see a flood of applications.
All right. I think you are